supposed to be celebrating the happiest day of my life, holding my newborn in my arms, surrounded by love. But as I lay in that hospital bed, something felt off. My husband wasn't answering, my best friend wasn't there. And then I saw the security footage. What I discovered shattered everything I believed about love, loyalty, and friendship. This isn't just a story of betrayal, it's a story of motherhood, pain, and the strength to rise from the ashes when the people closest to you burn everything down. Part 1. The calm before the storm. I always thought betrayal would come with fireworks, screaming, tears, maybe even broken glass. But sometimes the worst kind of betrayal arrives in silence. My name is Claire Reynolds, 32 years old, a kindergarten teacher, wife of 8 years, first-time mother, and for the longest time I believed I had it all. Michael, my husband, wasn't just my partner, he was my anchor. He made me laugh, made the bed every morning, kissed my forehead every night. He wasn't perfect, but who is? We had our arguments, sure, mostly about work stress, bills, how many pillows I insisted on stacking on the bed, but we always found our way back. My best friend Jenna had been part of my life even longer, since middle school. We'd survived bad haircuts, worse boyfriends, and one spontaneous road trip that ended with us sleeping in a Walmart parking lot. She was the sister I never had, the one who helped plan my wedding, who cried during my vows, who painted the nursery with me when I was too pregnant to bend over. When I found out I was expecting, they were both over the moon. Michael started building a crib before we even knew the gender. Jenna brought baby clothes on a weekly basis. They were the two people I trusted most in the world. Looking back now, there were signs, missed calls, quiet glances. That one time Jenna accidentally called Michael's phone instead of mine, late at night. But I was tired and glowing and naive. The week before I was due, things felt tense. Michael started staying later at work. Jenna was suddenly busy every time I asked her to come by. I chalked it up to life. Everyone was preparing for the baby. I told myself not to be dramatic. And then came the night. It was early, 3:24 a.m. to be exact. My water broke in bed. I panicked, called Michael. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. So I called Jenna. Also nothing. So I did what any terrified pregnant woman would do. I called an Uber and got myself to the hospital, alone. When Michael finally arrived 2 hours later, he blamed his dead phone, apologized, kissed my forehead, said all the right things. Jenna showed up later that morning, breathless, hugging me like nothing was wrong. But something was wrong, and I felt it in my bones. It wasn't until 2 days later, while waiting for discharge papers, that everything unraveled. And it all started with a nurse asking, casually, "Was that your husband and sister who left together last night?" I blinked. Sister? The blonde woman. She kissed him on the cheek and they walked out holding hands. It was like someone had taken the air from the room. Part of me wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding, but the rest of me knew. Something had shattered, and it had been breaking quietly for a long time. I tried to tell myself the nurse had made a mistake. Maybe it was a weird angle. Maybe Jenna was just being affectionate. Maybe I was overreacting, postpartum hormones, lack of sleep, new mom paranoia. But deep down, I knew I wasn't wrong. That night, when Michael went home to grab some clean clothes, I asked one of the night shift nurses a question that changed everything. "Is there security footage from the hallway?" She blinked at me, surprised. "Why?" "Just curious." She hesitated but finally nodded. "We only keep it for 72 hours. You'd have to get approval from security to view it." I didn't sleep that night. I didn't eat. I just held my newborn daughter to my chest, tears silently streaming down my face. Her name was Lily. She had my eyes, Michael's dimples. I'd waited so long to meet her, and now, in the moment that should have been pure joy, all I felt was dread. By morning, I had made up my mind. I told Michael I needed to stay an extra night for observation. He didn't argue. I think part of him already knew something was wrong. I wasn't smiling. I wasn't kissing him back. As soon as he left, I went to the hospital's security office. I lied and said I thought my purse had been stolen. They hesitated, but eventually agreed to let me view the feed from the night of Lily's birth. And there it was. At 4:57 a.m., Michael stepping into the hallway, followed seconds later by Jenna. He looked around, then pulled her into a hug. Too long of a hug. Then he kissed her forehead, gently, the way he used to kiss mine. She reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. They walked down the corridor, side by side, fingers intertwined. My chest caved in. It felt like watching someone else's life unravel, except it was mine. They came back 45 minutes later, acting like nothing had happened. And I had just delivered our baby. I didn't cry in the security office. I didn't scream. I just whispered, "Thank you," and walked out. Back in my room, I looked down at Lily. How could I explain this to her someday? That her father chose someone else, not a stranger, but the woman who used to braid my hair, who held my hand at prom, who swore she'd always protect me. The next 24 hours were a blur. I smiled when Michael showed up. I let Jenna hold the baby. I played the role of the blissful new mother while something cold and sharp grew inside me. I didn't confront them right away. I needed time, a plan. Because if they were going to destroy my world, I was going to make sure they watched it burn. The lies they told me were carefully stitched. Subtle glances, innocent jokes, late-night text messages that I had dismissed as nothing. But now I knew the truth. And truth, once seen, can't be unseen. I didn't go home right away when I was discharged. Instead, I called my mother and told her I needed a few days. She understood, she always did. She came to help with Lily, never asking why I looked so hollow. I didn't tell her, not yet. I needed time to think. For 3 days, I watched Michael act like the perfect new dad, changing diapers, singing lullabies, kissing me goodnight with that same mouth that whispered to my sister in the dark. And Jenna, she was quieter than usual. Maybe she sensed something had shifted, or maybe she thought I was still in the dark. I was anything but. On the 4th day, I told Michael I wanted to host a small dinner. To thank everyone, I said, for being there for me. He lit up. That's a great idea, babe. You sure you're up for it? I nodded. Absolutely. I texted Jenna and asked if she could help plan it. She said yes, instantly, still pretending, still smiling. I cooked everything myself. Braised lamb, garlic potatoes, Jenna's favourite wine, a peach cobbler, the same one Michael begged for every birthday. When they walked in that evening, everything was perfect. Candles, soft jazz, a table set for 3. "Where's Lily?" Jenna asked. "She's with Mom. I wanted just the 3 of us tonight," I said, like old times. Michael looked confused, but Jenna just smiled. Of course she did. She thought I was thanking them for support, for love. They sat, we toasted, I watched them eat. And then, when the plates were cleared, I pulled out a small black box and placed it on the table between us. "What's this?" Michael asked. I didn't speak. I just looked at Jenna. She glanced between us, uneasy now. The warmth was gone from my eyes. The softness in my voice had turned to ice. "Go ahead," I said. "Open it." Michael opened the box. Inside was a USB drive. "I thought you should both see something," I said. "A little memory I wanted to share." I stood and walked to the TV, inserted the USB, hit play. The hallway footage played in full colour, Michael and Jenna, holding hands, whispering, kissing. No sound, just silence and betrayal. Michael dropped his wineglass. Jenna turned pale. "Wait," she started. "It's not what it looks." "Stop," I said. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I just stood there, watching their faces twist and contort under the weight of their own shame. Michael stammered. I didn't mean it was a mistake. I turned to him. Number you made a choice, and now so will I. Jenna tried to speak, but I held up my hand. You were my sister, I said. You held my baby. You lied to my face. I walked to the door and opened it. Get out. Neither of them moved. Now. Michael stood slowly. Please, we can talk. I shook my head. There's nothing left to talk about. They walked out in silence. I closed the door behind them and slid to the floor. The house was quiet, too quiet. But for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than pain. I felt power, not revenge, not triumph, but the weight of knowing I had chosen myself, even if it broke me. The next morning, I called a lawyer. The morning after the dinner felt different. The house was still, not just from absence, but from a shift in the air. Something had ended. Not just a marriage or a sisterhood, but the version of me that tolerated silence to keep others comfortable. Michael didn't come home that night, neither did Jenna. Good. I sat at the kitchen table, cradling a mug of cold coffee, staring at nothing. Lily slept peacefully upstairs. Her tiny breaths, barely audible through the baby monitor, were the only sound anchoring me to this world. I opened my laptop. I started writing. Not a letter, not a message, but a journal. The truth, raw and unfiltered. Everything from the moment I first suspected to the night I exposed them. It poured out of me like poison draining from a wound, and it felt liberating. Later that day, Michael called. I didn't answer. Then he texted, just one line. Can we please talk? I made a mistake. A mistake, as if the weeks of lies, the intimate moments with my sister, the stolen time while I carried our child, as if that could all be swept into a single, hollow word. I went to my lawyer's office the next morning. Ms. Grant was a steel-eyed woman with a voice that didn't tremble, even when discussing heartbreak. You've got a clear case, she said. Infidelity, emotional trauma, and custody. We'll file immediately. I nodded. There was no more room for hesitation. That night, I slept in our bed alone. The sheets smelled like lavender, and him. I changed them the next morning. Then Jenna showed up. I saw her through the window before she rang the bell. Hair pulled back, no makeup, eyes swollen. She looked nothing like the sister I grew up with, and exactly like the woman who destroyed my world. I opened the door, only a crack. I just want to talk, she said. No, I said, calm. You want to explain. There's a difference. I didn't mean for it to happen, she whispered. It started with him comforting me after my breakup. I was lost. And I was pregnant, I said, carrying his child, counting on my sister to help me. I know, she sobbed. I know. I hate myself for it. I didn't say anything. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small necklace, a tiny gold heart, the one I gave her when she graduated. I can't wear this anymore, she said. I don't deserve it. She placed it on the doorstep and walked away. I didn't pick it up. The divorce moved quickly. Michael didn't fight. He didn't even try to gain joint custody. I think he knew he had no ground to stand on. Ms. Grant was thorough, relentless, and I loved her for it. But even as I signed the papers, something in me still ached. Not for him, but for the version of my life I had imagined. The nursery painted together, the family dinners, the future that would never exist now. Weeks passed. Lily grew, smiled, laughed. Her presence was both a balm and a blade, healing me in one breath and reminding me of the betrayal in the next. Then one night, out of nowhere, Michael called again. This time I answered. His voice was quiet, shaky. I'm sorry, he said. I know I've said it before, but I need to say it again, properly. I waited. I ruined everything. I know that. And I'm not calling to ask for another chance. I needed you to know that I hate what I did, that I think about it every day. Silence stretched between us. I loved you, I said softly, but you weren't who I thought you were. "I know," he whispered, "but you were. You were better." That night, I cried. Not for him, not for Jenna, but for the girl I used to be, the one who believed love alone could protect her from heartbreak. I held Lily tighter than ever and whispered to her, "We'll be okay." But the story wasn't over, because life, as I would soon learn, had one more cruel twist waiting for me. A phone call that would tear open every wound I'd tried to stitch shut. The last goodbye. The weeks after Michael's accident passed like a heavy fog, thick and unyielding. I drifted through them, caught between the hospital walls and the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, he'd wake up. But deep down, I knew the truth. Sometimes love means letting go, even when your heart screams to hold on. Every morning I arrived early, clutching a bouquet of lilies, his favorite flower. I'd sit by his bedside, tracing the lines of his face, searching for the man I once knew beneath the bruises and tubes. The machines beeped rhythmically, a cruel lullaby that mocked the silence between us. Therapy had helped me prepare for this, but nothing could steel me for the rawness of reality. Forgiveness was a battle, not just for him, but for myself. The weight of betrayal, heartbreak, and shattered dreams crushed me at times, but I forced myself to breathe, to keep going. For Lily, for me. Sophie visited often, her presence a strange comfort. The sister I once trusted had become a ghost in my life, a reminder of wounds that still ached. She never spoke of the past, neither did I. We existed in a fragile truce, both haunted by our shared pain. One bleak November morning, the doctor's somber face told me everything before she even spoke. "His condition has deteriorated. The damage is irreversible." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I swallowed hard, blinking back tears that threatened to spill. I grasped Michael's hand, cold and weak. My voice was barely a whisper. "I forgive you." Not because he deserved it, but because I needed to free myself from the chains of anger and resentment. Forgiveness was for my peace, not his redemption. Days later, his body gave out. The flat line on the monitor was a merciless end to the man who had once been my whole world and my greatest heartbreak. The funeral was a blur. Faces, flowers, eulogies. I stood under a grey sky, the weight of loss pressing down on me. There were no words that could fix the empty space inside. Returning home, I felt the ghost of our life together lingering in every corner. But I knew I had to live for Lily, my daughter, the light that refused to dim. I poured myself into motherhood, into my art, into rebuilding a shattered life. The scars would never fully fade, but I learned to carry them with quiet strength. Late at night, when the house was still, memories came unbidden. Laughter, love, betrayal, and loss intertwined in a painful tapestry. Yet, through it all, I discovered resilience I never knew I had, because even in the darkest stories, there is a flicker of light. And I choose to hold on to that, one breath, one moment, one step at a time.